Hello. Welcome to the e-NABLE Town Hall meeting for March 11th, 2016. I'm Justine Diamond, your host for this week's meeting. Town Hall is a weekly meeting held as a Google Hangout on air. At Town Hall, team leads, community members, and foundation members are able to update the community on what's been happening during the week and on what's coming up. We encourage you to ask questions of any of our speakers. The easiest way to do that is through the Q&A feature built into Hangouts. You'll find the Q&A at the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Just click on the grid of 9 boxes. If you're watching on certain devices, like an iPad or certain phones, you won't be able to access the Q&A, but questions can be posted on the post for this event. We monitor both as we go on, and if we don't answer the question during the town hall, we try to answer it in the comments on the post. Town Hall is about the e-NABLE community. I generally read through the community and attend the R&D Hangouts, and now the chapter Hangouts, and that's where I often find members of the community who are doing some really cool things. Sometimes I find out from newspaper articles or from Facebook posts, but of course the best source of information is for the is from the community itself. So if there's something going on that you're aware of or that we should know about, let me know. You can send me a message through the G+ community, or you can email me at events.enable@gmail.com. As always, you can find the calendar on the Foundation website. The calendar lists public events, chapter activities, presentations, and regular events that we do. You'll find virtual events like the R&D Hangout and Town Hall, and I'll be adding the chapter Hangouts to that on the calendar as well. If you submit your event to me or your activity, I'll make sure to get it listed. I'll get someone to list it on the calendar. If you're interested in representing the e-NABLE community at an event or at a maker fair and want some assistance in getting that organized, that's just another reason to get in touch. Today we have a bunch of big announcements, primarily on the Foundation side today. We're going to be holding our next E3 STEAM Hangout, which is an update on March 19th from 1 to 2, and Rich Lehrer will be talking about that. The timing for that is to potentially allow teachers in Europe and Africa to watch and participate, as well as folks on the West Coast. A lot of what we've done otherwise tends to be a little biased towards the East Coast. We also have Joe Fairley here, who is going to be talking about a new program with the Foundation, which is an official chapter affiliation, which I will be talking about in just a little bit. Back to events. There are a lot of events on the calendar. Right now, we have South by Southwest going on. John Wong, Melina Brown, Anderson Ta, somebody else, and John Schul, I believe, are out there and will be presenting. And I think on Sunday, Ivan Owen is giving a speech as well. And in any event, the calendars for the next couple of months are really chock-a-block with presentations. As a matter of fact, next week I am going to be, John Diamond and I are going to be at a small assembly event where we're going to be working with students to assemble Phoenix hands. And what we've done, and we're going to field test it at that event, and if it works out well, we'll be releasing it. I'm going to share my screen. We have put together, hold on, I'll share my screen. Has that come up? Yes. A guide, for assembling the Phoenix hand, which goes through all of the different steps to put a hand together, to apply the foam and the Velcro, and to find the different fingers. And we'll see how it works, see what kind of feedback we get on how this particular format works. This will be with high school students, so I think that'll be a good audience to test this on. And if it works well, then we'll release it, and people who want to put Phoenix hands together will have a good guide. We're also going to try and put together a video for that. So since we're talking about education, why don't we go right to Rich to talk about the Hangout.
Great, thanks Justine. Hi everybody. So today, as Justine mentioned, we wanted to make the official announcement of our upcoming E3 STEAM Hangout that will be happening on March the 19th, starting at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, as Justine mentioned, we've arrange this Hangout so that it can accommodate some of the teachers around the world who are using e-NABLE who may not be on the North American time zones. So in fact, when we did our kickoff in August of the E3 STEAM and our first sort of formal education piece, we did it in the evening, and we heard from some of our European teachers that they weren't able to participate because of the time there. So we put it in the middle of the afternoon. On Friday, it's on a weekend, so that maybe we can get more teachers involved. I just ask anybody out there if you have connections with teachers who, even if they're not already involved with e-NABLE, even if they don't have 3D printers, I think there's something there for all teachers who are interested in doing some deep, meaningful work with their students. So I thought that I would actually go through just a couple of things to set the stage for that Hangout. So there's our bit of information there, including the time. What we thought it would be good to do was to have a follow-up after our E3 STEAM launch, and for anybody who may be new to the community, our E3 STEAM, that's just the e-NABLE Educators Exchange. That's the education wing of e-NABLE. This actual Hangout is going to be focused on the K-12 education. We have a very active post-secondary community who is doing incredible things with e-NABLE. Joe is certainly going to talk a little bit about that when he speaks later. We thought we would actually focus just on the K-12 since there's so many exciting things happening in that realm, and to try to do a couple of things. What we wanted to do was both showcase some things that K-12 teachers are doing with e-NABLE, hopefully provide some guidelines for teachers who are interested in joining e-NABLE to actually come on board and walk them through a little bit the onboarding process for that, and to in fact have a broader conversation, not just about e-NABLE, but about project-based learning and doing this kind of authentic work with students. So in addition to being an 8th grade science teacher here in Massachusetts and coordinating e-NABLE's K-12 initiatives, I also am a national faculty member for the Buck Institute for Education. And the Buck Institute for Education is one of the foremost purveyors of project-based learning around the world. And so there's a perfect match between the work that teachers do with e-NABLE and the model of project-based learning that the Buck Institute is advocating. So I thought I would really briefly just talk a little bit about what project-based learning is and how it actually connects to the work that teachers are doing with e-NABLE. So I throw up this slide just because it shows some of the elements of project-based learning that the Buck Institute has, and this is just one model of project-based learning that's out there. But as you take a look at it, there will be some obvious connections between doing prosthetic handwork with students and the model of project-based learning that you see there. So the first one, I think that leaps out to a lot of teachers is if you look on the right side of that diagram, the idea of authenticity. And you don't, as I've said before in the past, it's tough to conceive of students doing a more authentic project than designing and building prosthetics for kids around the world. So oftentimes that's what brings teachers to e-NABLE, is just that authentic work, having kids in their class doing work that actually means something and provides an incredible service for somebody else around the world. A number of other pieces there that you might see: the public product. Oftentimes in schools, students are producing work simply for their teachers, or in some cases their classmates. With project-based learning, the emphasis is on having students do very similar things to what people do in the real world, and oftentimes that includes a really public product with an audience that is not within the school walls. And again, it's tough to conceive of a more public product than building a functional prosthetic for a child. So the challenging problem or question, obviously, can students build a functioning prosthetic? That's the question that kind of pervades the project-based learning unit. And there's a number of other things in there: reflection on the work, critique and revision, sustained inquiry. Those are all sort of hallmarks of project-based learning that this project, the e-NABLE project, easily touches on. Something that may not be as well known is a model that supports project-based learning called project-based teaching. And for anybody who went through school with what we might term a very conventional education, where the teacher stood at the front of the classroom and just kind of held forth and delivered lectures and was the focus of the class, project-based learning often comes as a bit of a paradigm shift. And so this is, again, something that melds perfectly with e-NABLE projects. All of a sudden, the teacher is not the holder of all the information and is just sort of dispensing it to the kids. The students come on as partners or collaborators in the actual education process, and the teacher takes more a role of what we say guide on the side as opposed to the sage on the stage. And what we're seeing with some of our e-NABLE educators, and certainly we're going to focus on a number of great educators who are doing this type of work in our Hangout, we see them doing exactly this type of work, not necessarily standing at the front, but working on the side, working as a coach or a mentor as kids go on and try to do this work. Oftentimes, maybe solving problems that maybe even the teachers had a tough time solving. So we'll certainly be touching on some of these pieces as well in our Hangout coming up. I actually typically what I do is highlight a couple of e-NABLE education projects that have been happening throughout the week when I speak at our town hall. What I thought I would do right now is highlight a couple of programs that I came across that are not actually e-NABLE programs. They're not affiliated with e-NABLE yet. I have a feeling that there are going to be some deep collaborations happening between e-NABLE and these two organizations that I'm going to tell you about. But I posted these in the Google Plus community. If you're a follower of that, you would have seen them. But I wanted to just show them to you just because it kind of shows that a lot of this incredible work is out there happening independent of e-NABLE. And one great service that e-NABLE provides is an opportunity to connect teachers who are doing this kind of authentic, profound work with kids and connect them to each other, but also connect them to e-NABLE, which kind of supports this type of work as well. So this week, I had the great pleasure of talking to a teacher from Nashville whose name is Jonathan Reveal. And I had found Jonathan through the World Leadership School, and he was doing a 5-week prosthetic unit with his kids. They don't have a 3D printer. None of what he is doing with his kids involves 3D printing. It's all working with hand tools, with fairly conventional materials like wood and PVC and cardboard and duct tape. And essentially what he's doing is almost a parallel project to what a lot of the teachers do with e-NABLE. He has his students working on a classic project-based learning unit, a 5-week unit. It's 7th grade. Essentially what the students do is they have a choice of a specific sport that they'd like to focus on, and then they spend their time researching the sport, interviewing engineers, interviewing professional athletes and amateur athletes about the specific motions that are needed. Then they do some prototyping of a prosthetic device that would help somebody participate in that store. Jonathan actually takes his kids to the hardware store. One of their classes is a trip to a community hardware store. They have a budget that they have to work under. They buy the materials, and then they essentially prototype and share their prototype with experts, so the athletes and the engineers, but they also share it with each other, and they get a chance to critique each other's work. And finally, at the end, when they've gone through a number of iterations and they have what they feel is a functioning prosthetic device, then they actually share it with the engineers and the athletes and go through it that way. And there was so much about Jonathan's project that just leapt out at me and just felt like a perfect match with what a lot of teachers are doing with e-NABLE. And in fact, one thing that we often find with teachers is they love doing printing the hands and assembling the hands, but oftentimes then it's kids that are sort of driving the desire to even want to do some designing and some investigating. And so Jonathan was great about sharing the work that he does. I'm going to post his unit plan and lesson plans in our repository, and in fact our conversation got him intrigued about e-NABLE, and so we're actually going to bring him into the fold as well. They don't have a 3D printer, but we have schools on board that can print components for his students. And what I think, hopefully everybody can appreciate that if a student just goes in and starts 3D printing and starts that way, they possibly lose the opportunity to really get in and get to know the actual work and do some actual designing and some hands-on work. So I would imagine that Jonathan's students, having already done a number of prosthetics just using conventional materials, now when they can see the potential of adding 3D printing into this, they're gonna view it with a different, potentially a different eye than maybe a teacher who just has the students leaping right into using 3D printing. So that's pretty exciting to see him, and you'll see, actually we're going to try and get him to present, try to get Jonathan to present at the Hangout on the 19th. If anybody else was, if anybody's looking through the Google Plus community, I also made a posting about an incredible school, and I use the word school very loosely here. This is NewView Studios out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. I've had the pleasure of working with NewView over the last few years. Essentially what they do is they turn themselves an innovation school, and what they do is they offer programs for students who might be homeschooled, students who want to take a break between years, so a gap year, students who are leaving conventional schooling. They also have a formal affiliation with a high school in Boston called Beaver Country Day. And essentially what they do is they have their students identifying problems in their community and designing and building solutions to those problems. And if anybody has a chance to check out this, there was a great little piece on WBUR, the PBS station in Boston, on NewView yesterday. I highly recommend that you check it out if you're at all interested in project-based learning or kids doing problem solving. The really great thing about NewView is the way they embrace working for the community. So they profiled some students that were doing some designing to try to alleviate some of the challenges that homeless people encounter, and they're pretty interesting because they're not just doing very small scale innovation. They're casting their net very widely. So they, in fact, they have 3D printers, they have laser cutters, but they also do a lot of work with other tools as well. Sewing, just an awesome example of a movement of innovation that's happening around the world. A lot of schools are sort of just inching towards maker spaces and innovation centers. NewView is an example of an organization that has just leapt in with both feet and is absolutely doing some incredible work there. So again, those were just a couple of things that I wanted to share with people, not really specific to e-NABLE, but I would imagine if you're familiar with the work of teachers who have been working with e-NABLE, you'll see a lot of parallels between the work that those educators are doing and some of our top e-NABLE educators as well. So I'll leave it there. If anybody had any questions, by all means, you can post the question in the community, and I can answer them today. And if I could just put another appeal out there, if you know of teachers who might be interested in this work, if they have a 3D printer, if they don't have a 3D printer, just have them check out our Hangout on March the 19th at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and we're trying to grow our ranks beyond the few hundred teachers that we already have involved with e-NABLE. So, great, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I am very excited about what's been happening in education. As you know, the past couple of weeks, we've had a lot of teachers and their students come in. Some of those teachers we are reaching out to, or Rich is reaching out to see if they'll join us. They've been doing some pretty spectacular work. I'd like everyone to just keep in mind this idea of sport-specific devices, because I'm going to be coming to that after we talk about chapters. So keeping with education on the post-secondary level, a lot of ways that students get involved with e-NABLE or stay involved with e-NABLE is by starting or joining their own chapters at colleges. And the foundation has put together a program which basically, it's an official affiliation that allows the institution to formally invite volunteers to come together to provide 3D printed upper limb devices to those who can benefit from them. And of course, many volunteers and organizations work with the e-NABLE Community Foundation and enable the e-NABLE community informally. But the thought was that creating a formal affiliation facilitates the adoption of best practices and common standards. It improves communication and support, and it should benefit both the supporting institution, the participating students, and the beneficiaries of those upper limb devices that are designed and fabricated by the chapters. And it enables us an additional level of support. And Joe Fairley, who started a chapter at Siena and has done a lot of work now with Merrimack and has been the go-to person in the community for both colleges and some individuals who want to start chapters. So we've tapped him to do this, and I'm just going to pass this over to Joe. You're still muted, though. There we go.
Thanks, Justine. Yep, so we have the official chapter affiliation process now. Basically, we've got a document up on the Foundation website that basically puts you through the motions of beginning your own chapter, all the way down from, one person having an idea at a school, college, university, and then, going through the motions of assembling a team of students that are willing to help out, checking out with an advisor and seeing if it would be something that the school would want to support as well. Looking for, the different materials. Oh yes, thank you, Justine. There, I was going to share that in just a few moments there. But yes, looking at the website here shows you enter the chapters tab. Step-by-step process of how to become a chapter. Looking through and designing your own mission statement, as well as coming up with job titles. That edition will be going on to this as well in the near future. We've got definitely a work in progress at the moment, but this just gives you a quick how-to guide to try to allow those students who are interested in becoming an affiliated official chapter of e-NABLE to do so. And by, like Justine said, by doing so, you're creating this more structured network of communication within the organization, the foundation, and really helping to kind of connect some of the dots that are kind of floating out there at the moment. With the aid from the universities and the colleges around, they can definitely have a big impact in their area. In my case, at Merrimack College, being a half hour away from Boston, we have a very tight-knit group of a few universities that are definitely interested in getting involved. At the moment, UMass Lowell and Worcester Polytechnic Institute are two schools that are right now in the works of becoming official chapters. Like Justine said, there's a laundry list of other schools that are involved. Right now, we have a kind of bi-weekly meeting with all those people who would like to become chapters. That occurs Wednesday mornings, normally from 8:30 to 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, and then there's an evening session to accommodate more people too, from 9:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. So this is just a way for all the chapter leaders to come together and share ideas, as well as look at different R&D features that people are looking into. So if they're making an adaptation on one of the hands for a recipient, then it's an easy way to do that. As well as looking at different testing capabilities, for instance, the grip strength of some of the hands, the durability, and then looking into what Justine is going to be talking about here soon. The design challenges is going to be a very large component in what we talk about in the near future with the chapter meetings. So if you'd like to be involved with that, you're welcome to email me at fairleyj@merrimack.edu. Otherwise, you can also reach me at jfairley@enablecommunityfoundation.org. Those two emails are both good to reach me at. For any questions about chapters, starting a chapter, if you already have something pretty much in the motions at your school, then it's just a very simple process of signing a declaration for each one of your volunteers within your group, and that will also become a little bit more step-by-step clear process within that page within the next couple days, where it's nice and easy to fill that out right on the website and be able to hand that in instead of what it's at right now with downloading it, signing it, and then either emailing it back or sending it back somehow to the email address that's provided at chapters@enablecommunityfoundation.org. Down at the bottom of that list there too, I'm just going to highlight that for a second while I share my screen. Maybe Justine, if you... I'm not sure if I can share my screen, Justine, but actually, yes, I can.
You should be able to.
There we go. Okay. And if we look down at the Community Foundation chapter page here, again, the introduction to how to actually become a chapter, looking through the mission statement for each chapter. Right now, there's an example up there for in order to build your own. The italicized lettering in there is where you would input some of your information for your specific chapter. We go through the motions of exactly what components make up a chapter, the actual materials, software, hardware that goes into every chapter process, and then kind of a little step-by-step process in how to build the chapter from the ground up, with making sure that you understand all of the motions that the foundation goes through to make sure that the recipient is as happy and pleased as possible. And then down at the bottom here, just a couple stories on my first recipient, Jack Carter from Ohio. So he was a great little 5-year-old boy. With these recipients, we're learning new things every day with the feedback that we get from them. So these kind of just highlight their little stories here. We got Jack's there, a few pictures of him, some media hits, and then down to a recipient that we just had before Christmas there in December from Merrimack College. And so that's his little story there if you'd like to read that. Just highlight this for a moment. Just before these recipient stories, there is this download our chapter declaration below. It comes up with a PDF, and that each individual would sign in the group. We'll be able to hopefully get that a little bit more clear in exactly how to do that in the easiest way possible here in the next couple of days. But on the aspect of the recipients, one of the large things that I was trying to incorporate into the chapter process is the recipient feedback. So right now, kind of working on a follow-up program with them, trying to get more feedback from the recipients is always great. It's not just a matter of, okay, now we're going to print this handout and give it to someone and then that's it. It's a matter of, with these chapters, following up with these people, making sure that they get the care that they need with the device, making sure they know how to take care of it, make sure they know how to use it. If they're a young child who hasn't really used that arm or appendage much, then making sure that they go through the right motions of having exercises for them that they can strengthen the use of that arm so that they don't just jump right into using the hand and then they might get sore or not use the hand as much if it hurts them while they're using it. So all those little things are starting to be developed within this follow-up program that'll be incorporated into the chapter mentality soon. So any questions with that, let me know. I'm always available by email. You're more than welcome. And we'll be happy to talk to you guys more about anything else you'd like within the chapter aspect. If you'd like to come into the meetings bi-weekly, we just had one this past Wednesday, so we won't have one next week, but we will the week following. So that will be the 23rd there. All right, so if you'd like, anyone listening, to get in on that, just email me, again, at fairleyj@merrimack.edu or jfairley@enablecommunityfoundation.org to get invited to that. All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'd like to point out just that there are times when universities and colleges are more comfortable with certain aspects of chapter activity if there's an official affiliation as opposed to a group sort of doing it on their own. So that's another benefit that we hope to help schools where we've had a problem where they can't necessarily get what they need support-wise from the administration because there's no, it's not a formal thing. So that's just another benefit. And we threw that website, the information on that website up pretty quickly, and we're going to be tidying that up a bit so it's a little easier to navigate. And Joe, yeah, do you want to just talk about what happened with Penn State? Because that's a good example.
Sure, I would. So at Penn State, there's a group right there going through the motions of becoming a chapter as well. They have all the components already set up, and they had a recipient lined up as well. But Penn State came back to them and basically said, we're not really comfortable with the entire process, and we're not sure if we can, we're not sure if we can back this sort of thing with the Penn State name on it. So, right now they're facing some of the kind of legal and technical issues with that. There are the steps to go through the foundation in order to rectify that. We're working with Penn State in order to try to help them ease that along. But again, hopefully this chapter officiation process will kind of help that along too, so that they don't have any issues from here on out. They would like to have that Penn State name right attached to what they're doing. Right now they are, I believe, the Penn State DigiDigits team. So they didn't want to slap on the e-NABLE label to it quite yet because of that issue. But these are some of the things that we talk about in our meetings with the chapter leaders, because these are some of the things that people might be facing right now and might not want to reach out to e-NABLE because they don't want to start up a chapter without their school being behind them 100%, like some of ours have, fully. So we can definitely address that issue if it comes up.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to check with questions and answers. I'm reminded that Andreas Bastian is also presenting at South by Southwest this weekend. So we have quite the presence there, and I believe, although I'm not sure, that there are a couple of videos, enabled videos that are going to be released from different organizations. So it's something to watch out for. Maggie Whitaker asks, does anyone have a suggestion for those of us in states that require a licensed prosthetist to fit a device? I've spoken to multiple prosthetists and they don't seem interested in collaborating. Since our devices aren't technically prosthetics but adaptive aids, I have to look into that. I don't actually have an answer for you, but I will get one or find out who can help you out with that. That's the first time I've come across that, so if you just let me find out, I will get back to you. And there's that brings us to our next big announcement, which is at Autodesk University. If you remember, we had a hackathon where there were three challenges, 2 for developing hands to help for various anatomy. The matching team seems a lot, and a third one to develop things to go with an adapter that a student in the community, Justin Laviguer, had designed, which would make the hand specific to a particular activity. We thought about other challenges we would want to do, and Skip, who's here on this call, had come up with the idea. He's been working on actual terminal devices that can be screwed onto prosthetics that are professionally done that a prosthetist would do. And this came up again in the design summit that happened just a couple of weeks ago. And they talked about what we would be able to do working with prosthetists to provide terminal devices that are modular and componentized. So we are very pleased to announce, let me just share my screen again. I'm kind of sorry I sound like a frog today. We are very pleased to announce, did that come up? Yes, it did. We are very pleased to announce that we are, as of today, launching a challenge to design a specific terminal device for a sports-related activity. As part of the Google grant, we are funded to do these. So this challenge actually has, I'll scroll down to it, a significant prize associated with it, where first place will be $750, and second place will be $500, and third place will be $250. Right now on the web page, this is about to be released. I'll be taking the passwords off it as soon as we're done with this challenge, so you can I'm putting a post in the community, and you can check out all of the specifics. I think the best thing for me to do is in a minute I'm going to pass this on to Skip, who's better equipped than I am to give you all the details. And one of the exciting things about this is when we were talking about this, and I was talking with Skip about how we might be able to demonstrate these devices, he started working on something very special for me. And I'm going to pass this over to him so that he can talk about that. Hi, Skip. You're still muted. Skip. Here we go.
Now, let's see if I can make my picture and my sound come on. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Terrific. I'm Skip Metz at the RIT Magic Act Lab with John Schul and a bunch of students. And we've been designing hands and arms and things experimentally for some time now. And we've been involved in developing this challenge. And John and Justine asked me to do something that related to what we've been doing. It's not necessarily the case that people who want to design assistive devices have a limb difference, for instance, that would allow them to use a prosthesis themselves. And you're missing an opportunity to get the bugs out of your idea and your design if you can't do it yourself. So we have often created things that will allow us to put the device that's intended for somebody with a limb difference, like missing fingers for a wrist-powered hand, to be able to try it out and see what it feels like ourselves. For instance, for the wrist-powered hands, we often take to makeathons or to maker fairs and things like that, a hand with a bar instead of a little mitten, so that an able-bodied person can try on one of these hands and see how it works. And so we've been looking at terminal devices for a prosthesis. And by the way, we are not clinicians. We are engineers. So we don't intend for people in the challenge to be putting these devices onto recipients. And to help work out the designs of these devices, I have been working on the design of a emulator. If you're working on software, say for a website or something, for instance, you might not be able to try it out on all the different kinds of computers and tablets and smartphones that you want that website to work on. So you might have a tool called an emulator that allows you to try it out and see what it's going to look like in use on all these other devices. Well, we have the intention of letting people work out their own ideas about terminal devices that will screw right on to the end of a prosthesis. If you have an amputation below the elbow, you may have a prosthesis that was created by a prosthetist with various kinds of terminal devices that you can use. And it's probably going to be operated by a shoulder harness. So when you shrug your shoulders, the split hook, for instance, might open and allow you to hold on to things. These terminal devices all have a standardized connector to the prosthesis. And that is a 1/2 inch fine thread screw. And it needs to protrude from the terminal device, maybe a 1/2 inch. And it will screw right onto the prosthesis if you line it up right. And there is a Bowden cable that connects to your shoulder harness. And if you can see what you're doing, you can hook that right up to the terminal device. And when you shrug your shoulders or move your elbow, as an elbow-powered device like we've been playing with might do, it opens the terminal device. So what this will do is allow the designer to test out the terminal device on various uses, like gripping an oar or a handlebar in the case of sports equipment, and try it out for themselves. Like I said, a prosthesis is made out of stainless steel and carbon fiber and tough materials like that, and we're making 3D printed devices. We're not going to put those onto recipients until we have confidence that we're not going to hurt anybody trying to hang on one of our devices on monkey bars or something and having the device break. And they do break. Here's one that just right off the printer, the finger broke. You know, we got to work out designs and processes that'll make sure they're tough. But the kind of thing that this emulator will let you do is you can use a fork, for instance, with a terminal device like this to help you slice cut your food. But if you were going to use it to feed yourself, you find out if you're really using a terminal device on a typical shoulder harness and prosthesis that the orientation of the device changes as you move your arm around. And so if you scooped up some food with your fork or spoon and try to get it to your mouth, you'll find that the orientation changes. And if you were just holding the terminal device in your hand, you'd be tempted to rotate your wrist like you ordinarily do and make some assumptions about use of the device that are not going to be accurate when the device is actually in use. So we've been working on a design that will involve a piece of plastic pipe that you can get from any hardware store and some printed parts. And we're printing these parts flat and thermoforming them because of the strength benefits of doing that. We've talked about that before. But when you print something flat on the bed, instead of trying to print a cylinder or an arch, you get a cross grain that makes it very strong like plywood. So if we printed these things in an orientation like this, there'd be a grain running this way, and there may be adhesion failures between the layers that would make it easy to break. We've seen that happen on gauntlets, for instance, on the wrist-powered hands. So we've developed this technology for printing flat and thermoforming. If you use PLA, you can do it in just hot water. And so that's the approach we're taking to making this emulator. And basically it's a piece of pipe and 3 printed parts, 4. We've got a hinge device too. And a few screws and some nylon filament that will serve as a Bowden cable. And the Bowden cable that's used on a prosthesis has a little ball on the end of it that connects to the terminal device that allows the cable to cause the device to open when you pull on the cable by a shoulder action or an elbow action. And so that's the way we want you to build your terminal devices, so that they will screw onto a prosthesis and that they will attach to a Bowden cable like this. So the specifications for those things are built into the requirements of the challenge. And I'm still putting together the final version of the prosthesis emulator that we'd recommend that you use to try out your devices and get the bugs out of them. So there'll be more on that. I'll make some instructional videos and stuff, and be happy to respond to questions. We'll show up on future noon Friday town hall meetings and so forth. So I'll respond to any questions you have, and if there's anything you need for me to add, Justine, I'll be here.
Okay, so I'm just going to mute you because I hear myself for right now. Okay, so yeah, Skip's design to make an emulator will make it very easy to test terminal devices, because what we are doing is the foundation is seeking to challenge individuals to design a sport-specific terminal device to fit an industry standard transradial prosthetic socket. So the terminal device therefore has to screw on, that's a half 20 hex bolt. And if it's imperial, for those of you who are imperial, it's an M12 fine thread. And what we're asking is that the terminal device be specific to a sporting activity. If you remember a while ago, Andreas and I think it was Jeff Ehrenstone did a kayaking hand. We're looking for people to design, we're challenging people to design a terminal device that is easy to fabricate and easy to use, safe, fun, and cool looking for the wearer, for the person who's going to be wearing it. We're asking for the file to be submitted for the device, as well as a video demonstrating it. And there's a lot of information. There'll be a lot of information on the page. Just the background on some of this is why a 3D printed design. Most professional prosthetics are actually made to be modular in that the hands are interchangeable with specific devices for a specific use. No one hand does everything well, even professionally made hands. We're requesting the designs so that we can make these people do buy these devices, but they're not covered by insurance and they're very expensive. So this allows us, it's ideal because we can handle that kind of design challenge, and there is a great opportunity to work with professionals, professional orthotic and professional prosthetic fitters and designers to to work with them to provide better service. And while we could focus on vocational activities for right now, we're going to focus on some fun activities and leave the chores till later on. And there'll be a lot more information on all of that actually in all of the challenge documentation. But I definitely encourage you, if you've got an idea for something that would help someone do a sport, that would be a great thing to do. I'm going to just check and see if we had any questions. Does anybody else have anything? Peregrine, did you have something? Because you just got to unmute.
Yeah, I've got been working on a project that's been requested that I present up here. It's a sort of a modification of the Osprey design. We've been slowly working on getting through the approval process. This is the entire project is sort of a testament to what happens when people make their own hands. And this is the result that I have. You can see it's got some somewhat non-standard additions there.
Are those talons?
Maybe.
Maybe.
So what I've done to start with, I've done the black leather brass hardware for aesthetic reasons mostly. I've adjusted this so I have sort of a crossband here that's actually quite, in addition to looking nice, it has a very nice function. It holds it on to me very well. I've used Tinkercad to make take some designs and use them as stamps to basically just cut out. I've got a gear imprint cut out here and another. It's difficult to see, but I've got a gear with a Chaos Star embedded in here, and it's a very easy, very simple modification that I think could open up a lot for personalization and customization for hands. And of course, yes, I have some claws on here that I put on because I could, but it turns out they're actually very useful. The claws are they help a lot when working with fabrics, in particular like sleeves or gloves. This is the first hand I've had that could actually grab onto a glove and pull it on or off.
Are they 3D printed?
Yes, they are. The fingers, they print down, so the claws are actually in the possibly the worst position for printing ever. The grain runs, well, you can see one of them is broken there. You can see the direction, it's broken along the grain there. But I've been doing some experimenting with annealing the plastic. I've just heat it up to about 200 degrees and leave it at that temperature for a couple hours. This is ABS plastic, though I understand PLA can be annealed similarly to even more dramatic effects to deal with delamination. But it's annealed and then acetone treated, so it's actually rather strong. It's the claws have lasted a lot longer than I expected. I'm also using a different fingertip cover. These are Mad Grip gloves. They tend to range from about $9 to $15 a pair, depending on the size.
Peregrine, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you just, because you just did it, there's a question. It's actually John Nyman. He likes the look of the nylon cross straps and asks if you can just show them being undone and tightened again, just one more time to demonstrate.
Okay, so these straps, they have on here, they've got these little tri-glides like a backpack. So if I just take these and pull them up, then it loosens, and I can just pop my hand out very easily. I do that, and then I can just pull on these two straps here, like that, and that. I have them pointing down so that whenever I pull on them, that pulls the device further down and more securely on me. And now this is a very secure fit. I have very long straps here because I have a big hand to pull onto it, but you don't necessarily need that much. You could probably stick like a ring or something to make the straps not need to be nearly as long as they are. But I've actually been very excited about using these gloves here. Very simple, pretty easy to get a hold of. They're on Amazon. They've got a very soft rubber exterior. They're I think the original intention for them is like vibration dampening gloves. Though they also work very well for, like, you can pick up basically anything open-handed with them. And they reduce the amount of force I need to apply to something dramatically. The other advantage is that with just a single dab of crazy glue on the top of each of these, they've held for about a month now. As opposed to the Lee Tippy fingertips, which I'll go through 1 or 2 every week.
Could you leave a link to those gloves in the sidebar?
I can find...
Or can you send it to me at some point?
There's the link. Where should I drop the link?
Just drop it into the chat and I'll put it into the minutes. Or agenda, whatever.
Okay, that is the link to their website, though you can also find their stuff on Amazon. They don't have gloves in every color, but they do have them in a few variations of, like, black with a couple different fabrics, as well as bright orange, bright green, and pink.
Oh, cool.
So we can still use these for our the flower princess hands we've been making. We don't have to stick black fingertips on that, as much as I think it would look nice. But anyway, it still leaves a good bit of that customization option open. So I guess there's that. If you want to expand on the straps at all, that also opens up another area for customization. There are all sorts of different ways you can customize the nylon straps. You can get all sorts of different designs. And I found them to be easier to install, both easier to put on the hand, easier to, like, they're just, these bolts run all the way through from the leather up through this gauntlet, and including through the nylon straps. So they're pretty easy to install. They're very easy to put on and off, and they don't chew up fabrics that are nearby them the same way that Velcro does. And these tri-glides, I've also I've also annealed the same way I did the fingers. The annealing process doesn't work so well on larger objects, but on here these have held up fantastically. They're actually quite strong. I can put a lot of force on them.
Did you 3D print those as well?
Yes, they're 3D. Everything in white is 3D printed.
Okay.
So I guess that's about everything, unless there's more in the
Q&A
Q&A that I've been ignoring.
Peregrine, you've got quite a few innovations there, and I encourage you not only to publish on Imagine or something like that, but to start a forum and talk about your tri-glides and your toughening the plastic by annealing and stuff like that.
Okay, a lot of the innovations in here they're part of the original Osprey. The tri-glides, the orientation of them is somewhat new, though very easily doable. The tri-glides are part of the original Osprey design. The cable mechanism, which is very, very simple, but also somewhat adaptive. I can grip like this, and it works. It's not full adaptive, it's more of a pseudo-adaptive grip.
Okay, so maybe the forum for the Osprey hand would be a place where you could put your applications on it. So, but please share it with us.
But yeah, I'm putting together a post. I've got some pictures of it. Yeah, that I'll be putting through and going through a bullet list of the different changes that I've made. But the project is mostly an experiment in what can happen when people make their own prosthetics. What kind of innovations and additions you can make. I wouldn't necessarily expect people to start putting these claws on every hand we have out there. I'm not sure how many parents would be okay with their 10-year-olds running around with big talons on their hands.
You might be surprised.
Maybe they are very useful. I'll say that much. And I haven't punched holes in anything that I didn't try to punch holes in. So that's an important part.
Well, I will be very interested in your posts on this, especially on the that strapping, which looks very interesting. And I know we're running out of time, but I have a question. So the straps are long, but you're not finding they get in your way or anything, right?
No, they don't get in the way of anything at all. I mean, they're relatively thin nylon straps, 1-inch nylon, so they're not catching on anything. They're not forming any holes. I cut and just took a lighter to the edge of it, so there's no fraying or anything. There's no bits of fabric there. And I can sort of like tuck the nylon, I can tuck these straps away underneath here if I really need to. But I haven't found the need to. If it really got in the way, you could probably sew some little pieces up here in the back to hold the straps in place. But it's not much of an issue. And for someone with smaller hands, you could very easily stick like if you sewed a ring onto there, you could pull with that, and that would probably be easier. And these straps don't have to be that long. Though another advantage of the straps is that I've found that with this sort of mechanism, I can put this hand on over nothing. It's not as comfortable without the sock, but I can do it. And I can also put the hand on over a heavy winter coat. So that opens up.
That's a good benefit where you are.
Yeah. The nylon cables tend to get a bit stiff under 32 Fahrenheit. I'm still looking into the details around that.
It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Okay, we're just out of time because it's just after 1. I'm just going to make sure I don't see any other questions. Thank you very much, everybody. We will see you next week. And until then, happy printing.